You may actually be sitting on the next best idea in political tech already. A lot of the best products that we have in our marketplace are first for the consumer market. There are a lot of people who probably have great ideas and don't realize the application that it may have to the democratic or the civic service process.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Liberty Ventures podcast. I'm Alexander McCobin, founder and CEO of Liberty Ventures. On this episode of the Liberty Ventures podcast, I'm joined by Dana Cichon and Sue Zoldak from Wolfram Labs. Now, what I love about their story is that neither one of them began in investing or in the startup space. They both come from the political side of things. They moved to DC to go make a change in the world, but then realized there's so much that the private industry and technology does to engage in politics that can either be used for bad, as we so often think of, or potentially used for good to actually help democracy, to help us engage politics the way that we want to, and build thriving businesses around it. That's what led them to create Wolfram Labs, which is specifically accelerating political tech companies, helping them navigate the space and improve our civic and democratic processes. Their suggestions for founders in the space, I think, are invaluable. The way they're approaching building this accelerator is fascinating for us to learn from. And they have some invitations for everyone in the Liberty Ventures community to get more involved. So go ahead, take a listen to this podcast with Sue and Dana from Wolfram Labs. Dana and Sue, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, share what you're doing, and share some of your lessons with the Liberty Ventures community.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
So before we get into Wolfram and the companies you're working with, your lessons to share, I want to start by just better understanding the backgrounds for the two of you, your stories that's led to you two working together and doing what you're doing now. So Sue, maybe we start with you, and then Dana would want to hear stories from both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have only recently landed here. I kind of go backwards here in Manhattan to really enter this tech space more readily. But before that, I had spent 20 years in Washington, D.C., running public affairs and issue advocacy and political campaigns. So it's something that is near and dear to my heart is, helping people and voters just understand civil society better. And I think of advertising and the outreach and the grassroots and the campaigning that we do is just a way to help people become more engaged and to make better informed choices, right? And so after having done that, and I still am doing that with my Zoldak agency and Zoldak Victory, two different ad firms, it was along the way, I'd really just discovered how much I enjoy digital. And so that's what we're known for is our digital work, our digital advertising, but then also just the tools that come into the ecosphere. How are we innovating? How are we at the forefront of innovation? Sometimes people think of politics as being kind of behind the space in tech, and sometimes we're ahead. You never know what that is. But from that, I just really became interested in that. And that's how I met Dana. And that's how we're here now.
And really quick, before we turn it over to Dana, what led you to DC in the first place?
So I was actually getting my graduate degree in public policy from Georgetown. And I got into the issue advertising space by reading about a case study in one of my textbooks. And I never knew that you could do advertising in the space. And that's how I started my career.
Awesome. Go Hoya Saxa.
So I got my start. I'm actually from Chicago, so now both Sue and I are in New York. But I started on the gubernatorial campaign for Bruce Rauner, and that was a huge win. It really sort of sparked my "you can do anything" fire, so to say. So then I got into grassroots organizing downstate Illinois, mainly for environmental issues, and ended up dedicating all of my time to that, building a coalition. And my doorway to DC came when a lobby shop came to the area for a wind turbine project. And they found me and were thrilled because I had already done a lot of groundwork for them unintentionally, building a coalition. So they tapped into me and they got me thinking, okay, this is an outside group, really validating what I'm doing here. I'm going to go to DC and change the world because that's where you do it. So packed a suitcase and moved to DC with the dream to change the world, and ended up getting into campaign finance first. It was a very informative job, but it was very limiting because you just do one thing, combing through FEC filings. And the magic of DC really lies in the relationship aspect of it. The whole city, DC runs on relationships. and you can network your way into anything. And so while working in campaign finance, got an offer to join a startup. And when I quit my job at the campaign finance firm, my boss at the time, he looks them up in the FAC filings to see, who would use them, and then sits back in his chair, crosses his arms, and I'll never forget. He goes, "Have fun. We'll be here when they fail." And the reason he said that is because there's a lot of firms that will come up into this space for a cycle for a year or two, and they fail because they're not sustainable. They can't hack it. And so I said, all right, well, I'm still going to join. Took that risk, made the jump. And then I was the fifth person on that team. And we scaled extremely quickly. This was in the 2018 midterms. And so we had an original tool. It was an app based platform that was built on the gamification of activism. So kind of like a social network. And we pivoted, we broke off a tool and made that its own platform. And so there was only a couple of us, and we had to build the plane in the air. And so we scaled this company. It was a one woman customer support team, marketing department, and product manager all in one. Did nothing but work and was so happy doing it. And so that really showed me this really unique world of political tech and how to scale a business within it. And then, long story short, Sue and I got connected through an event, and had this wonderful idea, and here we are.
So you both have experience in DC, and I love the way that you put it, Dana. For a lot of us when we're younger, we do think if we want to change the world, we got to go to DC. I did the same thing, and then went to grad school at Georgetown as well while I was doing that. And but you both made the pivot from working directly in the political space to the startup space, to the private side that's still involved with politics. And not many people, I think, realize that is an adjacent space or the role that it plays. So I'd love it if you can share a little bit about why you went into that space and what it's like for people who may not be as familiar with it.
Absolutely. I can give a little bit, and then Dana can share her side more as a product person. But I've always sat on the side of the table as the buyer of political tech, right? Running an agency, managing campaigns for clients. I found myself sitting in many, many pitches. I've watched firms launch from the beginning, from people that I knew, who were in college and actually built their product from a Harvard dorm room, not Facebook, but other products in DC. People who said they sold their product, going door to door with a backpack, and people who invented the Square reader that way, right? They went from 7-Eleven to 7-Eleven, right? And having watched all these people grow in our political space, and there is a lot of very specific tech that is used not only in politics, but just the communicating with, to, and from government, and just things like our voter files, all the data integrity. So there's a lot of tech involved to keep all these things going. But I found myself, kind of on the recipient side, and then over time giving a lot of advice, saying, I think the product would be better this way, or actually, I think you should merge with this company, or I think your pricing structure is wrong, or I think you're selling this to the wrong audience. Like, I have an audience that would buy this. It's not at all what you thought that you were selling this for. And so over a decade of doing this, from my side, I thought, I think there's got to be a better way to do this. I want to continue giving my advice and helping people, but it really started to crystallize in my mind. There isn't really a service offering to help these people go to market better.
Yeah, the political tech space. When I went into politics, I didn't think I was going to end up in tech, but kind of fell into it and fell in love with it. Tech is an amazing space to be in because you can solve anything. There is a problem, okay, great, there's a solution, and you can move a lot faster. You can really, really, really surmount mountains with tech. And I think being in tech in the political space gives us a unique platform, a more agile platform than working for any sort of government office in on the Hill, anywhere else. And because you can touch everything and be part of everything because of communication channels, like the company that I worked at and helped build, I was involved in all of these programs, fundraising, campaigning, door knocking, every single aspect of a campaign, writing their messages and helping them reach voters. And so with tech, you can really stretch yourself and help at every level.
So what I'm hearing from the two of you, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that not only I'm going to expand beyond tech, but the 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 for-profit private enterprise world is able to still be really involved in campaigns and in politics, and in fact, often is. And the focus there is in providing solutions for campaigns and politics to be able to meet the needs that they've been developing over time, and not just come at it from the individual campaign side, but just broader structural changes and providing solutions for them that some people might not realize. Is that about right?
I mean, absolutely. Like, we have one client that we're working with, and the easiest way I've had to explain their tech is, to a peer of mine in the industry is, remember when we used to have a conference room full of three-ring binders of crosstabs from dozens of research and then a consumer file of, what people buy, what, or, are women different than men in this district, are homeowners different? And we'd have, that file, we'd have the voter file, we'd have and then you have the budgeting team, the media team, and you're literally sitting in a conference room with, I kid you not, dozens of three-ring binders and trying to say, okay, well, this money is better spent here, but only targeted to this minute, to this group, but we're going to stop at this street. And then from this street over, you're going to switch messages and go over here. Well, now we have a product with us, a tool that visually overlays all this data on a map. And you're able to zoom down to like a household or a zip code, and you have all of that information layered physically, and you can say this media buy makes sense here, but over here, two streets over, it doesn't. That ad, we can see from the crosstabs and the research that message starts failing. And then I have other people in the industry who are then layering AI on top of that, so that you can even ask the tech in natural language, what if I wanted to do X, Y, and Z? Would that be better or worse if I spent it here or here? So now imagine the difference between a conference room of three-ring binders of reams of Excel sheets, right, to this natural language questioning, and so much in between. And that's just one example of one tool, right, of which there are hundreds that help make a campaign work. And so to us, I think you can tell Dana and I are both just really excited in the amount of innovation that is happening, that is still to be had, and what it could do really for democracy.
So I think that's a great introduction to Wolfram Labs. Let's now pivot to that. So what exactly is this, and how does it work?
So we are, I mean, you said it right just in the beginning. We are a new kind of accelerator. We are the only ones who exist in this space to help political tech companies. There has never been a roadmap for how to succeed in this space. And what happens often is that Silicon Valley solutions and people will come in to the market, they'll assess, and they'll say, wow, okay, the tech is pretty behind. We have a better solution. We're going to come in, save the day. Everyone's going to be so happy. They come in, they set up shop, and no one adopts them because no one knows who they are. They don't have political use cases. Their tools are not customized for the political uses that they are trying to sell to. And so they fail and they leave. And they don't realize the partisan nature of the market as well. It is very unique in its split between the two parties and what services solution or what solutions service each side. And so people are very put off by the market. It's a niche market as it is, and then it's split further. Oh, no, we're not going to choose a side. So what ends up happening is that the tech that exists and stays is tech that's built often by political operatives and not technologists. So it's not necessarily the most innovative tech. It's not sustainable in the long term, and it ends up hurting democracy over time because the tools don't last. And so we started Wolfram Labs to solve this problem and help good tech built by good people succeed in the space.
How does bad tech hurt democracy with this? Can you say a little bit more about that point?
Sure. So bad tech hurts the space. For example, let's say you have a solution that sends out a specific kind of message on a channel, and one tool sends messages with good delivery and one doesn't. But the one with bad delivery is the one that's adopted by the large committees because they have friends, in the office. They know they can get these large contracts because they have the relationships. And what that does is, as a result, a lot of messages aren't delivered. And this is just one example of one kind of tech, but this happens across the board very often. People will come into the space, spin up a really quick solution just because they can get those contracts. And so it's used then by these large organizations, and campaigns are hurt because they're not able to actually reach their constituents. And so we see this problem a lot. it's not good for any of us. It's really selfish players that do this, but it's profitable. And so that's one example of how bad tech can hurt the space.
Interesting. And Sue, I think you were going to say something as well.
No, I was just gonna say, that there are also people, Dana mentioned Silicon Valley, but we've seen a lot of good innovations come from Europe, from broader overseas, from around the world, and they have ideas and they want to bring it to the largest political and public affairs grassroots market in the world, ours, right? But again, they don't have the language, they don't know how to get meetings with the right people. They don't understand the even year, odd year cycles. So there's a learning curve, and our thought is, why have this such a steep learning curve be the reason that we aren't getting better tech? Again, to make democracy better, right? To make the democratic process run better, to have people get more informed with messages that are truly targeted for them, that people campaigns are reading data correctly, all of these problems, right? Why are we stopping that innovation from coming simply because of a failure to understand the proper go to market technique, right? And again, it's just it seems like a small marketplace. And so we set about Wolfram Labs, we call it a tech accelerator. It's because you bring us the idea and we tell you how. We tell you how to get through it. We tell you if there's regulatory hurdles, legal hurdles, how to manage, if you're doing a nonpartisan tech, the two different sides. If you're doing a partisan tech, how to best position yourself and entering that partisan marketplace. And it can, again, that's why we have such a broad range of advisors, from legal to AI, to developers, to people who are startup entrepreneurs, but to help these people get their foot in the door. Because I think the idea is, we want a free marketplace, right? And the best ideas succeed when the marketplace is completely open and free and transparent. And we feel like we're playing that role.
I want to better understand the way the accelerator works because you call it a different kind of accelerator. And I think that means more than just you're in the political tech space, it's the approach that you're taking. So, what are you doing differently from the many other accelerators that are out there in the world right now?
I think it comes down to um, both Dana and our um, really core values have to do with helping others and our network, and how our understanding of the human capital part of this relationship is really truly important, right? And so a lot of people come to us simply because they know that we can be their guides through this marketplace, because we both have a really solid reputation. We know how to vet between good and bad tech. We know how to make the right introductions. And so we guide them through, but then, we offer them the services that help them go to market. So whether that's a fractional C-suite, tech help, like I said, a lot of people need legal and regulatory guidance. Um, Pure marketing and branding. Have just been nominated. One of our first clients has been nominated for a Reed Award for Best Company Rebrand. So whether it's, it could be anything creative like that, or it could be more behind the scenes, but they know that we're going to give them good advice. And I think that's what makes it different as an accelerator. It's not just about funding or, you know, doing kind of a rote cookie cutter go to market plan, but to really customize the experience for every single one of our.
Yeah, it's not just that we know how to build products and go to market. It's not just that we know we're excellent marketers and communicators. It's also that we understand the space. And the ultimate currency in our space is trust. And both Sue and I have spent our careers earning this. The political space is a living ecosystem of relationships and hard-earned reputations. And it can take a lot of time. It should take a lot of time for people to prove themselves in that. And so we come pre-built with that. And so it's also why we have a pretty robust vetting process for clients that we take on to join our portfolio, because we know that trust is the ultimate currency. And the portfolio solutions that we present, people trust us and they expect them to be excellent. And so we make sure of that. So we say that we've started Wolfram Labs to open a doorway into the industry, and the cost of entry is integrity.
Okay, so I want to better understand what you look for in founders or in the startups that you do support. And that first one I think is absolutely critical, that it's, oh, look at that bubble come up. It's having integrity and being able to develop the trust with them and with others. I love that. What else are you looking for in founders and you think is really important for someone to be a successful founder in this space?
We I really will go back to, like, our core mission is this making democracy better, you know? Is your product actually making it better for the everyday person, right? Because ultimately politics, yes, it may be about electing a candidate, or we also, do public affairs and grassroots and nonprofit type of work, and type of tech. That's a lot of tech involved in that side that's not electoral politics. But ultimately, why are you doing what you're doing, right? It can't be, oh, I want to make money, or I want to be famous, or I want to sell this, right? It's about, are you innovating because you think that this product will help us become a better civil society? Will people become better citizens? Will they be better informed? Will they make better choices? And again, it's about that freedom to do that. And in order for us to have a free, feel like we're free in this country, we have to be equipped with information, that is equally available to every citizen in the United States, whether they have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, or they just hear about things from their friends at church or at a weekend barbecue. How are we helping our, not only our politicians, but our government, our local community leaders? How are we helping them do that and make society better? It could be on a neighborhood level, it could be at the federal government level. But we know it when we see it, when we know, like, they're in the space for that reason, right? And that's what is their shining star. We like to see that.
Love that. Would you add anything else, Dana, from your perspective?
It's really spot on. I mean, yeah, the core motivation for what they built and why they want to enter the space needs to be grounded in making democracy better. It cannot be for selfish reasons. It is so important given the space that we operate in, the political space. This is society. These are people's lives that we're impacting. The political tech industry is the engine of democracy. And so we have a responsibility to operate with integrity, to do the right thing, and to be good for people.
And I think the last thing I'll say is that, it's important to us that while people can come to us with their partisan tech, that they're approaching partisanship with the right attitude, right? That they're using their tools, to support their party and their mission, but in a positive way, and not in a way, again, to lower the level of discourse or to engage in activities or tactics that we think don't benefit, that open, free electoral system that we should all be so grateful to be a participant in.
I really appreciate you saying that and just the approach that the two of you are taking here, because I'll be honest, when I think about political tech, I don't immediately think helping democracy. In a lot of ways, I think the stereotype is this is actually breaking down democracy because it's gaming the system. But what you're talking about is finding ways to elevate the discourse and to actually help people be better informed and maintain that commitment to those values with the founders that you work with and the technology being developed.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because right before this call, Dana and I were talking about that, about how we felt probably, what's the most important message that we want to get across to your listeners, if there's one, is that we hope to take away the negative connotation of wanting to work and invest in political tech. I think a lot of people hear politics and they think, that's an industry I don't want to touch. I don't enjoy politics. I don't enjoy seeing it play out today in society. So why would I want to invest in that industry or even have anything to do with it, from a venture capital point of view, a business point of view? And we hope, if there's any one thing that people take away, is that there's actually the majority of people who do what we do, are in it for the right reasons. But we want to help elevate that even more and help people who want to come in the space that share that value system. And there are a lot of us. So I hope people can see that a lot of us are motivated for some really exciting reasons.
Okay, so let me ask for a specific example because I'll admit I'm the kind of person, I think there are others in the Liberty Ventures ecosystem who really don't like politics, period. We don't want to have to deal with it. We're annoyed that this takes up so much of our attention, energy, and brain space and would rather it be gone. And so how can you share a company that you're working with, a technology that you're working with that actually helps reduce that for people like me?
Do you want to share about OCP?
Yeah, so one of our clients is called One Click Politics, and they're what we call an advocacy software platform. And so what it is it's a system that allows any group or organization, so it could be your local church, it could be someone as large as Chevron, right? And it helps them create forms and a platform where they can get their either their employees, their supporters, or voters in the general public have a place where they can share a message and then have a landing page where people can just simply type in their address and be matched to their elected official, send their elected official a message without the rigmarole of having to first Google who your congressman is, your two senators, go to each of their individual websites, submit 3 times 4 times to that form. If you then want to write the White House a message, you have to submit another form. If you want to write your governor, you have to find him on another website. And so there's softwares that we work with that condense all of that into one action, and hence the name One Click Politics, is that people who want to have their voice heard can send these messages, draft them, send them, tweet them, record a video message, and hit send with one click, and it goes to all their elected officials. So that's an example, I think, of kind of, unless you're in the business of crafting those kinds of efforts, you may not even know that that technology exists. But there's lots of innovation still in that space to be had, especially with AI, with time delivery, when's the right time to send. So it's still an industry that is innovating quite a bit, even though it's been around for 15 years now.
Okay, great example on how it cuts down on the time and energy that needs to be spent to be engaged in politics. What about for those of us who want to kind of avoid politics more? Is there anything that political tech is doing to help with that?
So, for people who want to avoid politics but still be aware, there is a lot of innovation in getting to know people better, getting to know voters better. How do you like to be communicated? We don't want to bother you. We really don't. We want to reach you in the way that you prefer and with a message that's relevant to you. So, there's quite a bit of innovation around messaging and also preferences and opt-ins, especially. Okay, what do you actually want? And so it's important for people to be aware that the vast majority of people, the political messages that you're getting, the purpose is not to annoy you. The purpose is to inform you so that you can hopefully make a good decision on election day.
Love those examples. Now, let's say you're working with founders who have a high integrity, who are committed to helping democracy out. Even still, what are one or two of the biggest challenges that you see most of the founders in this space face? And what kind of advice do you give them, or what do you think is the best way to overcome that in broad strokes?
I would say the partisan nature of the industry is really difficult for new founders, especially ones that are not coming from the political space. The way to navigate that sometimes is you have to choose a side, and kind of holding their hand through that process is something that, sometimes they'll pull and not want to go and not want to choose, and that's fine if you don't want to choose it. Maybe you just don't want to be in politics as a tech solution. But oftentimes there are other solutions where it can be across both. And understanding the cyclical nature of the industry can also be a challenge for new founders to understand that, all right, it's a presidential year this year, it's going to be big. You have a huge opportunity here in front of you. But next year's an off year, so it's not going to be the growth, the same year over year growth that the regular business space can experience. So preparing founders for that, explaining that, okay, this is probably a more realistic growth trajectory is something that we help them through.
I think what I would add to that is that there are a lot of people who probably have great ideas and don't realize the application that it may have to the democratic or the kind of the civic service process. A lot of the best products that we have in our marketplace are first for the consumer market. And sometimes you think, well, maybe I can, pivot this. And, what we say is, contact us, have us help you brainstorm and think that out, because um, there are just so many innovations just in the broader consumer communications and advertising space that are fantastic for our set of audiences, and you just may not realize it. So you may actually be sitting on, the next best idea in political tech already. It just isn't being packaged in a way that would appeal to our marketplace. And so that's something that we always look for too, is, oftentimes I'm like tapping people on the shoulder and saying, can I have this? And that may be, somebody who's really have developed their product for, the doves and the tides of the world.
Sue, Dana, what you're doing, I think, is really inspiring. I love what you're building out here. For anyone listening who wants to get involved, if they're a founder, if they're an investor, they just want to learn more, how can they do so?
So we would love to invite your network to our investor showcases. So we're having our first one this week where we basically bring vetted solutions to a group of interested investors to present and say, here's my solution. Would you like to get involved? Would you like to be at the ground floor or whatever stage of funding that they're at? We invite everybody to come and hear these pitches and also give us your feedback and help us bring these solutions through to the next side.
And then on top of that, we have an advisory board. And if you feel like you have kind of that point of view or that experience that might aid our new political tech entrepreneurs, we'd love for you to, check out our website. There's a form you can fill out to say you're interested in being considered for our advisory board. And then just, at large in general, like we invite you to think about the tech that you already have or any ideas that you have and reach out. We're happy to, like I said, talk it through. So be an innovator, join our advisory board, join our list of interested investors.
Well, there you have everyone. Dana and Sue, really thank you again for taking the time to share all these insights and what you're working on with the Liberty Ventures ecosystem. I encourage people listening to get involved here. And while this is going to come out after the first showcase tomorrow, I'm going to do what I can to be there, and we can hopefully get our listeners to join future showcases coming up.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.